those kinds of people will naturally bring in the people that are just like them to help run that operation. Like if you look at China, for instance, the CCP, during the kind of the peak of the persecution of Falun Gong over there, that was actually one of the critical things that allowed people to rise up politically, is how many of these practitioners have you murdered?
Gosh.
How many of them have you tortured to death, right? Those actually became figures. Those became numbers on their resume to climb that ladder. So it was really, the more evil you were, the higher you could climb in the power structure.
Just a quick break from the program. I need to share with you in urgent manner about scam gold IRAs and the important need to make sure that you're working with a trusted company in the precious metal space. I have had hundreds of people come to me now where they have lost 50, 60, 70% of their life savings in these scam gold IRAs. We are having nearly 100% success rate getting their money back. If you have put your life savings into a gold IRA, I implore you to look and see if you have been scammed. Don't trust the company that sold it to you. Make sure you understand what you can get as a buyback value for the gold or silver that you have in your IRA. If you have noticed a significant drop in what you invested, you have more than likely been scammed. We can help you, and there's no shame. Go to sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin, fill out that form, and we will help you get your life savings back. Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall. I have the great Seth Holehouse joining the program from Man in America. He did a monologue over the weekend and said, "The Epstein files broke something in me." That was the name of the video. It's absolutely excellent, absolutely excellent. And he talks about the concept behind the Epstein files and this small elite and what this pathology is and what we're up against, and how the Epstein files just laid it out bare for everybody to see. And of course, there's still, what, 1.5 million files left. I mean, the craziness that we've already seen with all the bankers and the most powerful people in this world that we're part of being, trafficking children, eating babies, and doing it's just awful. And the fact that average people are seeing this now and how it's changing the psyche of not just this country, but the world. I had a group, I'm training on remote viewing. I've been training with Dan Smith for the last couple of years. I'm trying to get good at it. I don't know about be good at it. I'm trying to learn the process. I think all of us can do it. But the group that I was with, we were all talking about the Epstein files, and I was hearing, and they were telling me that in Europe, in England specifically, they're actually doing something. Prince Andrew got stripped of his title prince. If a politician has been caught in these things, they're targeting them for prosecution. They're actually doing something in Europe, right? They're telling me that if one more thing happens with the government of England, of Great Britain, that it'll probably take the government down. Whereas in the United States, we're not quite seeing that yet. And, where is that action? But a lot of people are talking, and it's unifying people across the political divide. And when Pam Bondi went in front of Congress and talked about the stock market, that backfired so immensely. I mean, it was being that out of touch with the way people believe about it. You can't ignore pedophiles and serial killers and point to the stock market instead. I mean, it doesn't work that way. You can't say I have this pedophile in my neighborhood and this serial killer in my neighborhood, so now it's all good, let's move on. I mean, it doesn't work that way. And being that out of touch, people are not okay with this. And his monologue over the weekend when I listened to it, just excellent. I'm gonna have the link below so that you can hear it yourself. But I brought him on, I want to talk about that, where he sees what caused him to do that. He has this support network of people coming together, communities coming together and coming up with solutions. And I'm going to have a link to that below. It's called Build the Ark. And I'll have a link to that. And it's also, when you watch the video, I'll have it by his name here. I really highly recommend. He has over 10,000 people now waiting on this list to get part of it. It's going to launch in a couple weeks. I've been talking about how we need the adults in the room to come in and take over. As these systems are crumbling, he's going to talk about why things are crumbling. And look at it from multiple different perspectives of what could possibly be the triggers behind this, because I think there's multiple agendas, multiple reasons why all these things are crumbling, but he comes up with some other ideas as well. If you see the big picture of it, it really helps it not be so out there. Before we get into that, I want to remind you that I have my Substack, sarahwestall.substack.com. I really appreciate everybody that supports me there. I've been under attack. My website has been taken down a couple times. I talk about it in this show today. I think it has to do with my coverage of this area over the years and my affiliation with John Mark Dugan, who was given all the Epstein blackmail files and videos. I have an interview where I talked to John Mark Dugan about the fact that he had all those Epstein files back in the early days of the investigation. I have that on my Substack. I have it. It was deleted everywhere, so you can find it on Odyssey. And I'll put a link to my Substack where I talk about that episode. And while you're there, consider supporting my work. That's how I fund my work. And also sarahwestall.com/shop. Support my affiliates. That's how I support this work. And I only look for the best people that you can trust and products that I use myself, like Miles Franklin, who you can trust. They have shown that you can trust them because they've been helping people get out of their IRA scams. We've helped hundreds of people with IRA scams where people invest their life savings a couple years ago and they're still underwater today. If that's you, you've probably been scammed. You can go to sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin, fill out that form, and we help you get your life savings back. I've had hundreds of people come in and they don't charge anything. They just help people get their life savings back. And if people invest with them, that's great. But they don't have to. And we've been successful at getting a lot of people their money back. But also, they don't treat you like you are just a retail customer. They treat you like you're a sophisticated precious metals buyer, and they give you really good premiums, low premiums that is competitive in the marketplace. You're not going to find that elsewhere. People take advantage of retail buyers. So fill out that form, sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin, and you'll get access to their private price list as well and get treated like an experienced precious metals buyer. Again, sarahwestall.com/Miles Franklin. And thank you everybody who shares this information, who supports me on Substack. It's only $8 a month and you support my work. And thank you for supporting me by buying from my affiliate, sarahwestall.com/shop. Okay, let's get into this great conversation that I have with Mr. Seth Holehouse from Man in America. Hi, Seth. Thank you for joining the program.
It is great to be back on with you. I always enjoy chatting with you, enjoy listening to your show. And so it's wonderful to be here. And thank you for the invitation.
Well, I watched your show over the weekend. Someone sent it to me. They said, I have to see this. And, I watch your show on a regular basis, but they sent that over the weekend and I listened to it. I said, I really need to get him on. It was about your reaction to the Epstein files that were all released. And it was just, if people haven't seen it, it was absolutely excellent. It was one of the best things I've seen. And your encapsulation of just what we're dealing with was so good. Can you give just kind of a brief overview of how you came to that conclusion and why you wanted to talk about it? And then I want to dive into different elements of what you were saying.
Sure. Just to make sure I'm on the right page, it was the shorter show, right? About 30 minutes?
Yeah, it was where you talked about how, let me encapsulate so the audience has an idea. You talked about what these files meant to you and what it meant just the horrific stuff that's in there and what it means about the people that run our world.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Well, so an interesting thing about that particular show is that, so when I wrote that monologue and then, gave it on a video form, but I took it and I thought, okay, well, let me just, I published it on Substack as an article and I put it on Twitter. And then I thought, I'll drop it into a post on Facebook. I'm very censored on Facebook, right? And what's interesting is that on Twitter, that article is now up to around 800 or 850,000 views. But on Facebook, it's at like 1.6 or 1.7 million.
Wow.
Like it's had over 10,000 shares on Facebook. So it somehow went, like it must have hit a chord, because I think we're probably, hitting between all different platforms over 3 million impressions, which, as you know, as a content creator, like that's not easy to get, right? Like it must have.
Not when you're a censored type person, right? I mean, we know what that's about.
It's easy if you're Charlie Kirk on YouTube before, or Ben Shapiro on YouTube, or Jordan Peterson on YouTube, and the algorithm favors you, right? So anyway, so go ahead, sorry.
No, keep going. I'm surprised.
Yeah, so that's also made me just think a lot more about it. And that's what it was. I think the title of it was, The Epstein Files Broke Something in Me, or it was something like that. And I think similar to you, I've been studying this kind of stuff for quite some time. I think I first heard about Epstein back in maybe 2008 or 2009, and Podesta and some of those things. And 9/11 before that, right? So these are things. So I'm not someone who's coming to this for the first time and seeing these files and saying, "Oh my gosh, all the conspiracy theorists were right. They are torturing and trafficking, kids on these islands." But for whatever reason, when I saw these files, and as I've spent time watching these files, but also watching the reactions to them, it's almost as if what happened is that the information, not just about Epstein, but the information about what's really happening in our world, it went from a more of an intellectual knowing into a feeling, right? And that, because there's a big difference between when you kind of know something versus when you feel it. It's like, know that, you might be worried if your child is lost in a shopping mall, but if you actually experience it and you feel it, it's a whole different story. And for some reason, the Epstein files moved a lot of that knowledge into a feeling, and it was really overwhelming for me, but it's a good thing, actually, because it's almost like a soul level recognition of where things are at. And so as I kept digging into them and just kind of grasping what this was and seeing it, it was just this feeling that, okay. It's like, Seth, you know this stuff, but now it's like you really understand it better, and you know it, and you feel it. That what it shows is that our world is being run by a satanic death cult. And that's something that I think that, you probably come to that conclusion multiple times in your own research, but to actually think about it. Now, what's also interesting is that over the past week, I watched Eyes Wide Shut. I'd never seen it before, because I thought, I don't want to go there. I know it's really dark, and there's a lot of just nudity and just gratuitous sex and stuff. And I kind of, you fast forward through stuff, or you just kind of look away. I don't want to see that kind of stuff. But it was, again, seeing that movie and some of those scenes, specifically the scenes of the rituals and the chanting and the robes and everything, and just the masks. It was just like, all this stuff kind of hit me at once. And it was just this realization, like this very, very deep sense that this stuff is very real. And again, even though I've been studying it for, 1.5 decades, right? And it got me to really start reflecting on just where our world is at. Because if you look at just America, just our nation, and you look at where we've gone from the founding of this nation to where we are now, and even looking at, as I referenced in that monologue, looking at some of, what some of the founding fathers were talking about, talking about how, the Constitution really only works for a moral people. And that without morality, I think, I forget whether it was John Adams or I forget who said it, but it basically that, nothing but the chains of despotism and tyranny will stop us from eating each other alive, basically. Like if we don't have morality. The Constitution is not going to keep us safe if we don't have morality. And if you look at just where the nation is now, and you look at the evil that is really in charge, not just in charge of America, but the world. And that's what you come to conclusion of. It's like Epstein. Epstein, he's the tip of the iceberg. He's
That's
just
right.
a single node. And that's why I think there's a lot of people that are saying, oh my gosh, look at, this is it. No. He's probably one of thousands and thousands of people playing that exact same role. Now, maybe others aren't going to be on an island somewhere. They're going to be in
That's
a
right.
hotel in Thailand or any number of places, or in Washington, D.C. in a pizza shop. I mean, but this stuff is so prevalent, and it really made me reflect a lot about just where our country's at. Because if you try to understand the evil powers, as you've spent a lot of your show as a journalist and as the host of a show, trying to understand these things, well, they're not easy to understand because they don't think like us.
That's right.
Yep. But and so that's an important one. But then also, if you look at the idea of kind of revelation of the method, and is that part of it, right? Because if you look into the idea of revelation of the method, which is really, to kind of simplify it, that the evil people will do something evil, but they're going to show it to us as they're doing it or after they've done it. And if we don't react to it and say, no, that's evil, don't do that, then that's, I think, how they get around one of the laws of free will. It's like, I think that God gave us free will. Like, this is a world of delusion, right? Like, I could go home. I could go, go sledding with my girls, or I could go to a strip club, right? It's like, you can do whatever you want in this earthly realm, but we have free will. And I think that's just a law of how this realm was designed by God. And I think that the revelation of the method, I think that's what they're doing, is that, if they're showing us this, if they're allowing this to be seen, and they're allowing the average person in America to read through these documents and read about them eating a baby on a boat and kind of disemboweling it. And I mean, if people can see this stuff and still choose to look away and still choose to say, that's just too much, like, let's go back to the Super Bowl. If that's the collective response to this, we're as a nation, we're basically saying, you know what, we're okay with it. We now know that most of you guys that are rich and famous and making all the making the laws and controlling the course of the country, we kind of know now that you're probably raping children and torturing and doing some kind of weird satanic stuff. But we're okay with it, because as long as we've got football Friday night, and as long as we've got this, we're okay with it. That's what got me thinking, right? Because is this not how this is bread and circuses? Oh, we'll look away from all the corrupt politicians in Rome as the barbarians tear down the walls and come to rape our wives and kill our children. It's like, oh, okay, well, as long as we've got our bread and circuses, and it just has been almost a surreal period of time in trying to grasp what's really going on.
Well, I've been covering this for a long time, and my site went down twice this week, and I've been targeted. And I think it's because of a lot of things that I've covered over the years, but one of them is my affiliation with John Mark Dugan, who was given the original Epstein files and videos, the blackmail files. He was a sheriff deputy in Palm Springs, Florida. I was working with whistleblowers, and when my site went down in 2020, I knew him from before that, and I interviewed him about that and things. And then my site went down, and my platform, I was unpersoned everywhere. He helped me out, and we've been working together ever since. And his files were given to 10 different people around the world because he was afraid for his life, right? I mean, imagine. I mean, these are big things. The FBI, the detectives on the case gave it to him because they were afraid that the FBI wouldn't do anything with them. And I mean, that's a fair fear, because look at where we're at now, right? And the Times or the MI6 tipped off the Times of London that he had asylum in Russia at that time. But, to make a long story short, they took down my website this week. And so I've been dealing with a lot of crap. And then I saw yours, and it hit me seeing your monologue with everything I've dealt with over the years trying to cover this, and what this means to the average person if we don't do anything about this. What can people do? And I think we need to get back in it. What can we do? But before we get to that, I want to talk about the mindset. You talked about a book.
Yeah, I have it sitting here.
That was so powerful because you, like you said, they don't think like us. How in the world could we be in a situation? And this is something I've spent years studying, like you. How can we be in a situation where people like this even exist? And that's what they have a cognitive dissonance. And these files coming out, when I was covering over the years, they thought I was a conspiracy theorist nut job. I've been taken off everywhere. She's being taken down because she's a conspiracy theory nut job is not worth being listened to. Then this all comes out, and those of us who have been covering it have been validated to a certain degree. But the next level is this cognitive dissonance that how could people like this even exist? Your explanation of it, I think, was one of the best I've ever seen.
Well, thank you. So this is the book. It's called, let me begin in focus there. It's called Political Pathology. And I'll explain more about it in a second here. But one thing that I try to do is I try to understand our world through history and through wisdom and philosophy, and obviously through faith and spirituality. But because I think that's how we need to be thinking now, right? It is, unfortunately, a lot of the great thinkers and intellectuals of our time have been completely co-opted. Right? Like, where's the Jordan Peterson of a decade ago that would help us make sense of all of this as whoever the audience was for his particular speech where he's framing it? There's just not as much of that out there anymore. It's not as easy to find. And that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, and it's not just like I'm trying to put on some act for the podcast. Like, this is just what I'm personally trying to understand and do is like really think about this stuff and really contemplate, like, what does this mean? Where are we at in history? And so this book really helped me to understand that. So the book is called Political Pathology. It was written originally in the 1960s by a guy named Andrew Lobachevsky. He was a Polish psychologist that was living under communist occupation in the 60s. And he and a few other researchers, they wrote this book. And in the first draft got taken and burned by the secret police. He then rewrote it, and that draft, something happened to that one. And then he eventually got a draft out that was released, but it wasn't published until decades later. So this was information that was really kind of not hidden necessarily, but it took a lot of effort to bring it to the public. Now, what it is, so pathology is the study of evil. I pick up a pen because I'm a fidgeter. So
yeah, so am I. I got my thing I'm fidgeting with.
Yeah, I've always got something I'm just playing around with. In case my wife's always like, why have these little things you're always fidgeting with us? Because I've got a crazy creative guy brain, right? It's unruly. So pathology is the study of evil. It's the clinical study of evil. It's not a religious study of evil. It's similar to how you'd have a field of virology, right? Or pathology, right? So pathology is the study of evil. And now the reason why the book is called Political Pathology is it's the study of how evil interacts with politics. And so what he puts forth in the book is that roughly 4% of all humans are what you would consider pathological. There's another book called People of the Lie, which is another really good book that also gets into this about like these people that are pathological. So, but what does that mean? So basically how it's been described in this book and a few others I've read on the topic is that we have something inside of us that like a lot of these, I'm seeing there are a lot of instances of these videos coming out. There's like the Cappy video. There'll be video of like, kids screaming. I can't watch those. I just can't.
I can't anymore. And I can't even talk about some of this stuff at too much detail because I have for so long. I'm like, I got to zoom out and talk about it at an abstract because it's, for me, it's too hard. It's too dark. And I think it makes you human, though, that it still connects with you, but it's too hard.
It is, but that's what makes you human, right? I'm glad that you mentioned that. Now, you can become desensitized and you can still be human and not think anything of it if you've seen it your whole life. But for your average person, we feel that because we have a conscience, right? We have empathy. But there's a portion of the population, they say roughly 4%, that, as it's been described, is that there's literally just a hole there. Like they're missing that part of them. Now, some people can start off human, but say they're born into satanic ritual abuse, it can very quickly get rid of that for them, and maybe it gets buried into some sliver of their personality.
MK Ultra type stuff,
exactly. But that compassion, that empathy is what we have. People that are considered pathological, they don't have that, so they don't feel bad if they hurt somebody. They don't feel remorse. They don't feel empathy if they see a child suffering. Oftentimes it's the opposite, right? But so here's the key, though, is that these people that you consider pathological, they not all of them, but a good portion of them are very driven by power and control. What are their ideals? Like for me, it's like, okay, as a human being, what are my goals in life? Well, I want to have a beautiful family. I want to raise my children. I want to do these things. I want to build a community. I want to have these relationships that are centered to my life. I want to be able to plant a garden, experience beauty. So these are the things that drive most human beings that have a healthy soul. They don't have that, though, so they're driven by power. And what happens, though, as he describes it, is that you'll see these types of people, these pathological people, that are naturally attracted to positions where they can exert their power over other people. And so they're naturally attracted, kind of like, moths to a light. They are naturally attracted to positions of power in politics, in media, in large business, in financial institutions, setting policy. They are drawn to these places, even your local sheriff. If you look at how many people actually end up being child predators, a lot of them are people you'd never suspect. It's the leader, the head of the school board, it's the local sheriff, it's the local judge. It's like, as you look at those positions, I think they actually tend to be a higher percentage of people that are evil in those positions than, say, a guy who's a cook at a restaurant, right? Because they tend to flee, they tend to kind of climb that ladder. So what happens, though, is that as these people start honing in on these power positions and they start gaining power, they then will promote people under them that align with their own values, because it makes sense, right? So if you're an evil person and you gain control and you're running a company, a large company, and you're using very underhanded means to maintain control, whether it's, say, killing off a scientist that was going to disprove your company's core product or whatever means, you're okay with that. Those kinds of people will naturally bring in the people that are just like them to help run that operation. Like if you look at China, for instance, the CCP, during the kind of the peak of the persecution of Falun Gong over there, that was actually one of the critical things that allowed people to rise up politically, is how many of these practitioners have you murdered? Gosh. How many of them have you tortured to death, right? Those actually became figures. Those became numbers on their resume to climb that ladder. So it was really, the more evil you were, the higher you could climb in the power structure. And so if you imagine that these power structures grow stronger and stronger over time, because, okay, let's look at the banking industry, right? Which we know that a lot of the if you go back to, say, the Bank of England, the 1700s, and even before that, what happened, the banking industry, the financial institutions are where a massive seat of power. And so if you've been in charge, let's just say that you're Amchild de Rothschild, right? And say, back in the day, you're running this banking empire and you're gaining more and more control. Whereas now you're actually funding both sides of a war. It doesn't matter what the cost of human life. But every war then makes you 10 times more powerful, 10 times more powerful. Over time, you accumulate more and more power. And so naturally, these people want to bring in their own children, their own kin, their own bloodlines to keep those positions of power. And so that's how and so over time, the amount of power they've amassed is something beyond our wildest imagination. I mean, you look at Elon Musk and it's like, oh, Elon Musk is the richest person in the world. There's no, he's not. He's the richest person in the Forbes magazine that's published by the people that want you to know who they want you to think is the richest person in the world. Right. I've heard estimates of the Rothschilds' wealth at being in the, tens or 20 or hundreds of trillions of dollars.
What, the turn of the last century, they had like a third of all assets. I mean, it was just absurd. But they're supposedly the Paysir family which isn't listed anywhere. They're based out of the French royal family when France went down. They supposedly are even bigger, but I don't know. It's hard to find it. But if you look at old records of the people that own the majority of stocks in turn of the last century, you see their name everywhere. Now you don't see it anywhere because they're doing a lot of trusts and they hide it behind big conglomerates, right?
Exactly. And you can see, though, how that power would accumulate over time. That's just what happens. It's like, okay, say you're a wealthy nation. Or, a nation might become really wealthy, but then they have war or famine and they lose their wealth. But like, you're the people these are the people sitting on top of all that. They're the ones that are benefiting from the collapse of an empire or whatnot. And so over time, though, if you can imagine that these people, they kind of slowly seize control of all positions of power in the entire world. And not just the positions of power in terms of like the government and everything, but also the positions of power that control what all of us are even thinking and seeing. I mean, we literally, we don't see it, but like, we literally live in a prison planet. Like, we are imprisoned by a small group of evil people that control almost every aspect of everything in our entire society from the day that we're born. Right?
It sounds so crazy you saying that, but I mean, it's true.
Well, it's like, you think about it, it's like, okay, well, what do they really control? And you look around in our lives and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this stuff is made, this computer equipment is made in China, which they established, the communism in China, right? It was made in these factories. That was part of their doing to send the jobs from America over to China. That was part of their operation. These companies, whether it's LG or Samsung or, these are all owned by them. The media channels owned by them, the big pharma, all owned by them. It's like the textbooks that we are taught as kids, that's from them. All the medical advice, oh yeah, that's from them. It's like you start realizing it, holy smokes, like they kind of control everything. Now, it's not to be like a black pill, like we still have free will, but this is the amount of power they've accumulated over time.
Well, what do you think's happening now? I mean, why is all this coming out? Is it a test for us? They've gotten so arrogant and so cocky, they feel that you guys aren't going to be able to do anything anyways. We might as well tell you how it is, and we just operate the way we do.
So I've got an answer to that, but I'll a few minutes. Because I have a much longer answer to that.
Okay, keep going then.
Because I want to get into that. But I'll just kind of finish so basically, what the Lobachevsky describes in here is that what happens is that you eventually have something that emerges called a pathocracy. And that's how he describes it. Yep. Is that if you kind of look at the basic principles of, okay, power accumulates over time, and it's kind of like the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, right? So over time, that power accumulates. He says eventually you get to a point where basically the entire system has become evil. That's a pathocracy.
Just a short break from the program to share with you an amazing peptide to help you lose weight. It's stronger than Ozempic. And why? It's because it not only reduces your appetite, but it also burns fat. These other GLP-1s on the market, they do not burn fat. They just reduce your appetite. This one, retatrutide, is stronger. It's considered a next generation peptide because of that. And man, does this work. I've been using it for 2.5 weeks and I've already lost 11 pounds, and I cut my dose in half because I was losing weight too quickly. And that kind of freaked me out, to be honest. And so I also am taking this 5-amino 1MQ in capsule form. This helps by making sure that you lose fat, not muscle. And so in conjunction, I'm using both of these. This will work whether you have this or not. And I am telling you, it's amazing. If you are interested in getting this, I have the link below, or you can go to sarahwestall.com under shop. You can use the coupon code Sarah to save 10%. If you have questions about your own use, you should either consult your doctor or you can join Dr. Diane's tribe. And I have a link below to that. It is only $1 for the first week. You can ask her any question you want and get all your answers to this, how to take an injectable. And there shouldn't be any fear in doing that. It is easy and straightforward. Go to sarahwestall.com under shop or use the link below. And remember to use coupon code Sarah. With the system, not all the people in it, but the system. And then the people who aren't evil and who are like, what the heck, who are challenging it are the ones that are the most targeted. It's all backwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, people say that, America's a constitutional republic, but people say, America's a democracy. Well, it's not really a democracy, but it's like, okay, let's pretend America's a democracy. Well, the people living in America are just living inside that system. It's like they aren't that system. They're just they're bound to the rules of the system. And so that's the thing, is that the system that rules this world is a pathocracy, right? It is a collection of evil people that have over multiple generations, and they've maintained their bloodlines. They control all the world leaders, all the executives, everything. Okay. So that's what you end up with, is a pathocracy. And that's where we're living. And that's what's been helpful for me in seeing this. It's like, oh, that makes sense. And it's also why there's all the blackmail and everything, is because A, it's about making sure that they have control over people, but B, it's about making sure that anybody who's at their level is evil as well. Like, they don't want some righteous person up there that is like, say, like has the wealth and power of Elon Musk. That's like, hey, like I want to do good for the planet. Right? Like, you guys are evil. Like, this is not good. We're going to give everyone free energy, and it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, you don't rise to that level of power if you're outside of that system. So now what's interesting is that what he talks about in here is that it's at that point, once you get into like that really advanced stage of pathocracy, that's when the system starts to crumble. And one of the points that he makes in the book is that as they start building these empires, and they're promoting and they're bringing people up, whether it's their children they're raising to take their place or people they're bringing into the system, it's not a merit-based system. It's not looking at it saying, okay, well, we're going to make you the head of this media company because you are amazing at running a media company. Like, no, we're going to make you the head of the media company because we've got compromising videos of you with that 4-year-old boy in Thailand. So what happens then over time is that the people become more and more incompetent, because the resume is like, are you really evil? Check. Do we have blackmail evidence on you? Check. Are you from some sort of powerful family that we know can blah, blah, blah? Check. It's like, okay, we're going to put you in charge. So as pathocracies develop and evolve and get into later stages, they start falling apart because they just can't run themselves. The people become so incompetent.
Well, and the competent people keep hemorrhaging and being like, we don't want to be part of this, right? That's part of the problem. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, but also what happens is once that starts happening, the facade starts to kind of break. The illusion starts to break. And so as more people start to see the evil for what it is, that starts weakening the system, because even though the pathocrats, right? We'll make up some new words here. Even though the pathocrats sit top and they run everything, they still need all of us on the bottom here. They need us. They need us to buy their products. They need us to carry out their work. They need us to protest. They need the people. And so the more people that see the system for what it is, and the more that then say, I'm opting out of this, that's actually what ends up destroying a pathocracy, is when enough people at the lower levels, the common people, is when enough of us see the evil for what it is, and we say, I'm not going to take this. I'm not going to stand for this. I'm not going to become silent. I cannot forget what I saw, and I'm going to make sure everyone else I know knows about this stuff. I think that's what's happening. And that's we're seeing that happen now, and it's pretty incredible to see. Like I have friends on Facebook that are very liberal, and it's fine. Okay, I'll be friends with them, but I'll see that their comment threads and people saying, "Holy smokes! Like this is exactly what those conspiracy theorists were talking about. It's all true. They're eating babies." Like you're seeing that there is this mass awakening that is happening, and so you had asked me a question earlier that I was going to get back to, right? In terms of like, well,
why
what do
now?
we do?
Why? Yeah.
Right?
Well, before we get
now?
into the what do we do? Why are they being just so open about this? I mean, like, what is going on? Is it that it's crumbling and the people who are saying enough, it has enough power to make this come forward? Or is it that they're so incompetent and so arrogant that they don't care anymore that it comes forward? I don't know which is true.
And that's
or both.
The whole why now is such an important question with this. And I have a few different theories, but actually I just did an interview on Sunday with a woman that was a satanic ritual abuse survivor that was involved in like the underground tunnels of the Vatican. And I'll talk a little more about it, but she gave an answer to that question I hadn't heard before, which makes a lot of sense, but I'll get into that. But in terms of kind of some different theories of why now, I think one thought I've had is that, are they at a place now where the AI is advanced enough and they've got the digital system ready to roll out, that the last thing they need is for the general population to say, this system is so broken, it's so evil, it has to be replaced.
It's the reset.
Right? The ultimate Hegelian dialectic, right? Then they can come in and say, look, all that money laundering, that corruption, it's all because it's just the human flaw. We really need to have a digital system to come in. AI can't be bribed. AI is not going to be blackmailed. You know,
it can be programmed,
digital currency,
but anyways.
Can't be, exactly. So that's part of my thinking is like, okay, is that part of it? Like, are they doing this because they intentionally want to they want the system to collapse? They want to bring in sort of technocratic system. Is that it? Maybe. Is it revelation of the method? Is it that they're tired of hiding this stuff and they want to be able just to, do this out in the open, and they're giving people an opportunity to say either I won't accept that and I'm going to fight against it, or to say, oh yuck, I don't want to look there, but kind of like it's okay, keep doing it. So I've also had that thought. I've also had thought is like, okay, is this part of some sort of war happening? Right? Was this something? Was this release tied into? Was it maybe some like Mossad and CIA kind of cell that was kind of doing this to bring down President Trump, or was it? Do you mean is it some sort of like kind of way of these nations battling? And so, but I was talking to this woman, is Max Lowen, and she opened my thinking to a lot of different things. But one thing that she said is, so there's a quick background on her. So she was raised in Europe, and from a very, very young age, I think kind of, maybe 1-2 years old, she was kind of slated for kind of grooming and bringing her up within this system, within one of these inner sanctum kind of evil cults. And she witnessed as a child, cannibalism, human sacrifice, child sacrifice. They would even take her and they put when she was a kid, they'd put 2 kids in front of her, and they'd force her to choose which kid had to die.
It's so
and if
awful.
If she didn't choose one of the kids, they would actually kill both of them right in front of her, or kill one right in front of her. I mean, she was even saying that part of what they even do is this is kind of crazy, but that they will actually prepare an embryo that is done. They have a way of kind of creating embryos that have more special abilities. They will implant these embryos into a woman that is a carrier. She said they would literally abuse the growing baby inside of the mother. So the ritual abuse started inside the mother's womb.
God.
And then she said that if this was a particular child, she mentioned the Jesuits. Actually, she said the Jesuits are like, she said the Jesuits make Epstein look like nothing. Like the how advanced their trafficking networks are and their blackmail operations and stuff. It was I want to do in our show and talk to her about that, but she would say that even once this baby was then born, they would actually kill the mother of the baby just after the baby was born. So the baby's first impression was that.
Oh gosh.
And it's just like, I mean, it's just, the evil is just astounding. And so, but I was talking to her, and at one point she said, well, their system is collapsing. And though I have a similar feeling, like I also believe the system is collapsing. But I'm looking at it from a completely different perspective than her. And so I was asking her, I said, well, you see this system in a way that I don't understand it. And I said, what do you mean when you say that the system is collapsing? And so what she did is she explained, because amidst that I was also asking, the question of like, well, how does this hierarchy of control work? Right. And this is something that there's all these theories, right? Is it like, okay, it's the Committee of 300 and you have the Trilateral Commission and you have this and you have the bloodlines, and basically how she described it. And this kind of feeds into why it's collapsing. Is she said that on the very bottom level, you have all the common people, you and I, mostly good people, on the very bottom of this pyramid. She said the next level up are the actors. She was like, she said anybody who has a large position of influence or power. These are the presidents, the CEOs, the famous TV hosts, anybody that has a powerful role in shaping society. She said they're part of it, and that they're an actor. And she says, look, she goes, you've probably heard the saying that the world is a stage, right? She goes, that's true. And it was interesting because it wasn't like she was, she read it in a Jim Marrs book, right? She was actually saying no. She's like, that's literally true. She's like, everything that you're seeing play out in this world is acted. The leaders, these things. Now, obviously, like organic movements from you and I or people like us, those aren't acted. We still have free will within the system. But she was explaining how, like, that layer above us creates this reality that we see, the science that we believe in, everything, the politics we believe in. They're all actors. And she said, okay, above them, then you have intelligence agencies, you get military industrial complex type stuff. You keep going up. She's like, then you get into, say, Committee of 300, you get into some of those committees. Then you get into more of like the ancient family bloodlines. But she said above them are what she described as interdimensional beings. And she basically was saying that, look, above, at the tip of all this, basically are kind of demons. That was the best way of understanding it. Like she has kind of seen them, and she described what they look like and seeing these interactions. But basically, as you get higher up, you get closer and closer into the center of this, or like the top and the center of this pyramid, which is just pure evil. It's Luciferianism, it's Satanism, it's just evil, right?
It's these demons controlling these people. Did she bring up like the Mothers of Darkness, that kind of group? She
didn't mention them specifically, but I've studied them as well, and I think that's also one of these kinds of groups. And I'll interview her again. I'll ask her about that actually, because I didn't remember to ask her during that time. But basically, what she explained is that actually when they go through these ceremonies of, say, sacrificing a newborn child or whatever it is, that's how they open these gateways to communicate with these beings, is that through these ceremonies, through a lot of what they're doing, that's what enables that communication to happen. So they can receive their orders of what to carry out, basically. And then it kind of goes down from them to the lower level to, say, then the Trilateral Commission, to the intelligence agencies, to the actors. And we look at it like, oh, there's a Ukraine war. Or, oh, look at, there's a, there's a big movement of trans stuff happening. What's that coming from? Or, wow, the UN's teaching sexual stuff to the little kids. Why is that happening? But it all goes back to this center of power. And so, which I mean, this aligns with my belief too. I think it's that we're not fighting humans. At the very top, I think it's Satan and his spawn. And she said,
or evil energy and evil demons that feed off of us or something.
Exactly. And so, but I said, okay, but then why? What do you mean by it's collapsing? And she didn't go into much detail on this. I want to ask her more about this, but she says the only way I can describe it, against my recollection of this interview, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but what I recall from it basically is her saying, she said, that top level, it's not there anymore. I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, it's not there. She's like, that that evil at the very top of this entire system has been taken out.
Wow.
And I said, well, that can't be like that some human assassinated somebody.
Wow.
I mean, but that must have been something spiritual or divine that had happened to cause that. And she was like, yeah, basically like whatever was there at the top that was doing all this stuff over thousands of years on this world, it's not there anymore. And so what she explained then is she goes, so what's happened is because that central authority of evil is no longer there controlling, what's happening now is every faction beneath that is now fighting out for control. Because these are all psychopaths that want unlimited power and control, but they were always just bound to the level above them. So now that the top thing, as she's explaining it, has lost control, it's now you have all these separate smaller pyramids assembling of power and control, and they're actually fighting each other.
There's a vacuum
There's a
for power.
vacuum. And so she thinks that the Epstein files were part of that fight. She thinks that it was actually just because there's these multiple factions, and it was a way of one faction trying to take down another faction.
Well,
and that's what
I heard years ago about the one faction going to take over the old faction, and it kind of ties in. I mean, that's amazing what she's saying. It also has, I don't know what the truth is, but there's a parallel of the monetary system is in the midst of collapse, and that would cause the vacuum and the factions to fight as well. But that brings a whole spiritual war, what you're saying, when people talk about a spiritual war, and they could have been taken out by the spiritual warriors, that are fighting. I don't know. That's incredible. That's the first time I've heard it as well. One thing that I've been dealing with over the last week, and what I was told is that the reason why they are so interested in those videos that Dugan had, was because they are claiming that the Russian government and other governments are using those videos for blackmail. And so that's why it's kind of heightened, this blackmail thing. And my thing is, these things are out everywhere, and these blackmail videos are out everywhere. So it's a chaotic, uncontrolled. It goes to what you're saying, that there's these pyramids of power all over the place, and it's just out of control. And everybody's fighting for that power position, is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. And I think that when that's happening, the illusion starts to crack, because when you have that one central kind of control structure, it's kind of like, it's kind of a silly analogy, but think about Apple, right? A company that has maintained its brand like religiously, right? And let's look at Steve Jobs. So imagine when Steve Jobs was alive, he would look at a piece of packaging and say, that little angle on that packaging is not correct. It's not meeting the Apple standard. So everyone followed that one central command. So the entire thing was so cohesive. The brand experience of Apple Store in Hong Kong was the same as it was in LA. But imagine then if he just disappeared one day, and say the entire kind of C-suite just disappeared, right?
Yeah, exactly. He did, and they're struggling a bit, but yeah.
And so, but then imagine if it's like, oh, you look at it, it's like, well, gosh, Apple Hong Kong, like they're painting their phones pink over there. You've got Apple LA that's got rainbow flags inside of the Apple store. And this is happening because without that central control, now you've got all these different people saying, well, I can be the leader then. I'm going to be the leader, right? And I think that's the same thing as what's happened is that, and I can see, so when I heard her say that, I've heard a lot of different things that people describing, whether it's, what the reptilians underground are like, or things, and it's like, oh, that's interesting, and I'll look into it. But when she told me that, it just made sense. And it's like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And so going back to the whole analogy of Apple, the one thing that you can say about Apple is that they maintain the brand. It's almost like the brand of this evil empire is deception and illusion. Right. And that's what's allowed them to have their strength over millennia, is that they've maintained the ability to hide from the common person. So the common person would just be thinking, gosh, why is the political system so broken? It doesn't matter who we vote in, or gosh, why is this happening? Why is it that there's this inflation happening? Why is it that big pharma seems to be making people more sick instead of helping them, right? They didn't know, because they didn't see that there was this hidden hand behind these systems, that legitimately had an agenda to eliminate people, right? Depopulate the earth and keep what they need. And so I think that was their brand. And so now that the head is off, I think that their ability to maintain that brand of delusion, it's breaking. And so I think that now you've got these, whereas before they might have said from the very top, it would have said, okay, those Epstein files cannot go public because if they do, people will see behind the curtain and understand how evil this system really is. But now that thing's not there to stop that. So maybe it was Russia, maybe it was a CCP, maybe it was, who knows, maybe it was Israel, I don't know. But now it's like that country is not thinking about the global control and keeping everyone in an illusion. They're saying, hey, we can dump these Epstein files and bring down President Trump, or we can do this and we can collapse the economy in Ukraine, or whatever it is. And so I think that's actually a lot of what we're seeing play out now. And it is that these systems are now fighting each other, and their greatest enemy is no longer us. They're now focused more on fighting each other. And that process of fighting, like, we're kind of witnessing it happen. People are looking around like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And you're seeing it. And it's actually really encouraging.
It is encouraging.
It's really exciting. Like, this is good news, right?
Well, it is. I mean, the fact that we've, because I've been doing it for so long and watching this come out is surreal. And watching everybody learn it for the first time is kind of surreal. And I mean, I don't know what to think about it all. I don't know. It's exciting and encouraging at the same time. It's also not. It's both. And I just kind of watching it play out, and hopefully human beings will do the right thing.
I hope so. And the thing is that, I've been trying to pay attention to the reactions of people that see this as new information to them.
Quick break from the program to share with you something amazing. This is called Sloop. It's actually SLUPP-332, but it's been shortened to Sloop. And this thing mimics exercise. It seems too good to be true. I first shared this on my Substack, and I had Dr. Diane Kaiser, and we went through all the benefits of this, and the whole thing sold out. You can't get it anywhere really across the industry. And the people who are using it the most are athletes and bodybuilders and people who want to see extra performance in athletics, because this and preclinical studies with mice increased their endurance by 70% and their distance by 45%. I mean, it's incredible. And it's been shown to mimic exercise even when you're at rest. In preclinical studies with obese mice, they lost upwards of 12% of their body weight in 4 weeks, and it increased muscle. So this is really taking the industry by storm. It's actually not that expensive either. With my 10% coupon, it's about $80 for maybe a 2-month supply if you take 1 capsule a day. If you decide to up it to 2 capsules a day, because your dosage depends on what you want, then it's a 1-month supply. But Dr. Diane recommends doing 1 capsule a day until your body gets used to it. You might not see the same level of results right away that the mice did, but your body can get used to it and see if it's something that you really want to do. If you are interested in this, I will have a link below so you can try it yourself, or go to sarahwestall.com under shop. Remember to use the code Sarah to save 10%.
Right. I'm looking for those kinds of interactions and seeing whether there's tons of videos going viral on TikTok, right? Of, maybe it's some young liberal girl that thought her uncle that talked about, these things was a complete whack job. But now she sees, like, I'm sure, you probably heard the kind of the idea of the dark night of the soul, right? Is that when you first see this stuff for what it is, you have that dark night of the soul. Maybe you're just sobbing for a week. I know that, my wife, talking about for her, she ended up curled up in a ball just sobbing all night when she actually learned about this stuff. The
trauma you went through. I mean, I went through all that. I was sick when I first interviewed somebody whose father recruited and did a lot of the recruitment for these political parties and things. And it was back in 2016. Remember the daycare centers in California where they were.
Yeah, the whole satanic panic type.
Yeah, and there was tunnels and things, and I can't remember the name of the school. But his father, it was the first time they had information out on that. He had all the files, and it was the first time he was coming out. He just poured his soul out, and I did a 2-part on it, and he was talking about it in detail, what happened and what they were doing to these little kids. He's talking about how the 9-year-olds were comforting the 6-year-olds because they were already, experienced. I mean, it was awful, right? And after I heard that interview, I did that interview, I got sick for a week. I mean, I hadn't gotten a cold for years, and it bothered me so much I got sick, right? I had a cold and my immune system completely collapsed. And I went through this trauma base. I interviewed Rothstein, who took down more pedophile rings. His informant was Roy Cohen, if anybody knows. I mean, I could go on and on about all this stuff that I uncovered. I was the first one to term the phrase blackmail as a currency of the powerful. I saw a lot of stuff, but that interview rocked me to my core because he was pouring his soul out, and because I can feel energies, it was like I was feeling it almost firsthand. And my immune system collapsed and I was sick for like 10 days. It is really a trauma. It is very traumatic when you fully understand what it is that we're dealing with.
It is, and that's why I'm seeing this, and I mean that's part of what does give me hope is the responses I'm seeing. Right, people that looked at this stuff as being a complete conspiracy. You're seeing these videos of them like swearing and crying. And I saw there's one video, and she was talking, and she's a college kid, I think. And she's like, oh, my teachers, they talk about the next thing to do in class. And she's like, the class, she was like, they're eating babies, right? And she's like crying, and she's like, you want me to go to class and do my assignment when I just found out that these leaders that we've looked up to are sacrificing children? It's like she's having that response, and like that
it's actually healthy. I mean, it's awful, but it's healthy.
That's how it should. I mean, that's what it should be. If you see that, it should be like, I'm not going to sleep until like we like strangle these people. You know what I mean? The people that are doing these things. Like that's the healthy response. Like if I knew somebody was hurting my children, I would do
everything.
Bad things. You know what I mean? To that
you
person,
drop
right,
everything. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. And so that's why I think though is that, and this is one thing that I think that it really differentiates us is that the people, these people, they don't have souls in the same way that we do, right? And I think that's why maybe like they just don't have a soul. Maybe they're just who knows what, right? But these people that are these pathological, psychopaths, they don't understand us. And I think that's why they want to control us. But that also makes them underestimate us, because what happens when your average person sees this information, like they feel it. And I'm seeing a lot of people saying, I will not turn away from this. I'm not going to just forget this. And that's, that's what, probably that's a big part of why you're doing what you're doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing is like, once I understood this stuff, like you can't just go to the movies and pretend everything's normal again. You see it everywhere. It's like you're stuck with the They Live glasses on. And it's like everywhere you look, you're just like, oh my gosh, there's evil. Stuck. There's propaganda. It's like, it's so hard, right?
It is. It's like you're stuck in a freaking nightmare. It is. And then you have to work through how to be mentally healthy. That's why we have to clean it up. You can't have the serial killer and the child molester on your neighborhood in your block and just go, okay, now we know they're there. Let's go on, move on. I mean, you really, that's essentially what we're dealing with. That's why when Bondi was up in Congress talking about the stock market, people just, it was surreal.
It's backfiring so much. I mean, it is like it's crazy actually how much it's backfiring. But I think that, I think that the most important point with all this is that there is hope, right? And maybe that's why that thing I wrote up, but maybe that's why it spread so far, is because it acknowledged the darkness for what it was. And it, in a lot of ways it said, yes, you should be feeling this. It's a good thing if you feel this sickness inside of your soul, right? Because when you see this stuff. But it also, I talked about political ponerology and what happens, and why pathocracies collapse. And there is hope in there, right? It's like, okay, well, where's the hope? Well, the hope is that more people are seeing the stuff for what it is. They're now fighting each other and they're losing control. So it's like, well, what do? We keep hope, don't lose our humanity, like come together as people, right? And this is what like is a big one, is I'm seeing this as this amazing opportunity, especially here in America, where we've been so divided politically and all kinds of stuff. I'm seeing this as the ultimate opportunity for us to kind of put everything else aside, right? Because it's like, imagine that you go to a protest. It's an anti-child sex trafficking cult protest, right? Which is something you and I would have done 5 years ago. Yeah, sure, of course I'll go to that and hold a sign up. But imagine you go to that protest and the woman right next to you has some nose ring, blue-haired BLM t-shirt, but she looks at you and she says, "Sarah, I haven't slept for a week since I saw this stuff. We have to fight against it." It's like, you're on my team, right? It's like, we can put everything else aside.
That's right.
And that's why, and I think is one of the greatest things that threatens them, because it's why they've kept us so divided, because they don't want us to see them as the real enemies, right? They want us kind of fighting this fishbowl of left versus right and black versus white and, you versus I, right? That's what they want. But so it's just interesting because I'm actually seeing, I'm like my Substack, or I'm getting comments of people that are saying, wow, like I have never heard of you before, but your video popped up in my feed and I watched your video. I had this one woman, she told me exactly, she was basically saying, I'm far left and I would have never had any crossover with you, but your video on the Epstein was so powerful for me. You're so right. It's a moral issue. We have to come together on this.
Absolutely.
And like that, to me, like so I'm like really changing the tune of my show. That's kind of the cool thing, is that I am so done with politics.
I know.
And it's like, okay, love Trump or hate Trump. I'm not going to get into it. But what I love about President Trump is that he has showed us the system is broken. Like, even with the perceived hero and the all-star team and the FBI and everything, even with that, what we thought was going to be something, it's like, okay, you've now showed me the system is far more powerful, and I'm no longer going to play your game of politics anymore, which has been really great. So, I'm kind of rambling a bit, but it's, I feel really optimistic amidst all this.
Well, I think we are in a reset, right? I'm not sure what all the different factors that you brought up, I think, could be at play here. I don't know really what's really causing it. I think it could be a combination of agendas. I think it could be the spiritual war, absolutely. It could be the currency reset also. Maybe that is the spiritual. I mean, I think there's so many things, but regardless, as the system resets, we're going to need, I always say, the adults in the room need to take over. We need people with wisdom. We need solutions. We need people coming together. And you talked about having a platform where you're going to be doing a lot of that. I thought that you're one of those people that could really be in the forefront of helping to create some of these solutions and working with people, and providing a platform or a forum for doing that. Can you talk about what it is that you put together? I think that's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, so to frame it a little bit, so of course this is good. I really do believe this is a good thing. We're seeing through the veil, but that system has still given us stability. It's given us the criminal banking system that still works. I still can pay my mortgage. I can, all these things that we have, there still is stability within it. I think that we do have some really difficult times ahead. Like, I don't think it's going to be, wow, the evil is just, they've killed each other all, and now it's going to be a golden age and we're going to rebuild. I think it's going to be really, really difficult. I do think that good will prevail, but I think it's going to be really difficult. And so, I'm someone that really, especially, early 2020, but before then, have always put a lot of emphasis on preparedness, right? And just being, whether it's having food, having water, all the things it takes so that, okay, hey, if the grid goes down for a month or whatever, my family's fine, right? And that's given me a lot of peace to know that I've done things in that way. But what I also learned in that process was that you have to have community, right? Because during the 2020, that time, I moved out in like the far rural country of Ohio. And my wife and I, we had 50 chickens and gardens and food and ammo and everything, but we had no people. And so it was miserable and it was very fear-based. And so we moved, and now we're in an area where we have people, right? And so
I like that, yes.
And that was one of the big realizations for me, is actually that to get through whatever's coming, the most important thing that we can do to be prepared is to have community. But it's not easy to build that community. Like, what do? Do you go to the local kind of meeting? Say, hey, who here thinks that we're run by a bunch of satanic pedophiles and that the Great Reset's like, on our doorstep, right? It's not easy, right? So I thought, okay, well, how can I help that? So what we have, which is launching in a couple of weeks, is it's an online community that's really kind of oriented around building offline relationships. So it's called the ARC. So I've got a book coming out called Prep Like Noah, which is it's going to be a book on just really how to prep like Noah. It's like, okay, this guy saw, like, God told him, build an ark. He spent 100 years building an ark to survive a flood. And he then was able to take his family and carry through to help kind of recreate the human population after that flood. So I really think that we are living in the days of Noah. I think there's a flood coming and that we have to be prepared. And so the book, which is coming out, the website is just preplikenoah.com. They can sign up to be notified when the book comes out. So we got that. But the core of what I'm doing is actually building this ARC community. And so what it is it's a private online platform where it's really centered around preparedness, but it's kind of centered around preparedness, not like, hey, here's my bunker and how much ammo do you have? But it's actually really about building community and training. And so on the platform, it's almost like a private social media. There's, posts, and you can go to like, okay, hey, this is the prayer request section, and here's the, hey, here's the water and, or the chicken Q&A section. So it's an area where people can gather and share knowledge and find the person who's an expert at solar or animal husbandry. So that's part of it, is actually connecting people to other people that share their values. But we're also going to have chapters, so region-based chapters. And so you might look at it and say, okay, well, I'm in this chapter. And so this is the chapter head. And oh, wow, the chapter head has now said, okay, there's a meeting every month now for everyone within that chapter. And so the idea is that it allows people to start building these communities and building these relationships. I mean, you can even do it that now people can choose their level of kind of privacy and location, but you can even go and look at it and say, okay, find anybody within 100 miles of me, right? And so it'll show these are all the members of the community that are within X proximity of you. It doesn't give their exact address, but okay, this person's in this general region. So it enables it. You can then direct message those people. So it's really about kind of building this place for people to come and find people that are like them. And so that way we can support each other on this journey of becoming more prepared and more resilient.
And help come up with solutions internally and with your community and all that. I think that's what we need. We saw a lot of it popping up during COVID, but and maybe we can learn off some of that, but this is a different level, isn't it? This is something a little different. And as the systems come down, we're going to need a lot of people. People are going to need to have a place to lean on. They're going to, as they're learning about what's going on, I think they're going to be disoriented. And I think we need to have the ability to be accepting of other people where they're at and help them get through it while we're struggling too.
Exactly. Yeah, we can't have this "I told you so" attitude. I mean, we have to have our humanity. We have to preserve that, right? Otherwise, it's like we're no different than them.
Yeah, we can't be. They're a bunch of normies, and God, I knew about that 10 years ago. How dumb are they? I mean, you got to, and no, there's a lot of people that feel that way, but you got to stop that urge and say, okay, I got to meet them for where they're at. Remember where you were at 15 years ago when you started learning about it. They're at that point right now, and we got to help. We got to just be patient.
Yeah. Which I think it's also it's recognizing that they're suffering. And that's how I look at it. I think it's compassion. It's not, and that's kind of like a really important principle to me. It's just compassion. So what is compassion? Well, it's not just being kind. It's recognizing, it's feeling, it's empathy. It's like, gosh, you're suffering. It's like, I'm so lucky that I was able to see through all these lies at that stage of my life. But, before then I was controlled by the same lies as this other person, and they just saw through them later than me. Does that make me better than them? Right? No, not at all. It's like, I should be right next to that. And that's like the feeling I have, actually. Like, I really have this feeling of like, I want to find anybody who's just going through this process. I want to like go sit with them and put my hand on their shoulder and say, okay, I know it's really bad, but you'll get through it. You're going to figure out how to be happy, but now let's work on this together. And so that's part of the, again, that's part of the reason I'm building the community. I'm doing the podcast, is just to help more people be prepared and resilient, because I think that we're going to need to be. Like I said, I do think that there's going to be a lot of the structures that maintain our easy lives are going to change, and it'll be difficult. We'll get through it. But I think that people need to be very sober about that. I think that we're heading into some difficult times.
I think we are too. Do you think there's going to be a lot more files coming out? Because my understanding is that some of this other stuff is worse. I mean, I don't know how much worse eating a baby is, but worse in the sense that it really lays out what's happening.
It's hard to say. I think I saw that it was earlier today, the DOJ said they're done releasing files, but I think a lot more will come out, because again, I mean, Epstein was he was like 1% of the 1% of this stuff happening. Like, you think the CCP doesn't have their own networks like this? You think Russia doesn't have their own networks like this?
Sure.
You think that MI6 and it's like Epstein he's just one of thousands doing the exact same thing.
That's
so
right.
I think that whether more Epstein files are coming out, or whether there's another WikiLeaks type thing, or, I mean, even I saw Kim.com posted something that's saying that someone just hacked Palantir and discovered that Palantir was basically tracking all these world leaders and all this kind of stuff to help kind of help Ukraine take out Russia. And he was saying that these hackers have released all these files to Russia and the CCP. So I think that we're going to see a lot more coming out, just because it's the way that this war is being fought. Yep. So if you have an opposing faction that wants to bring down the other faction, they're going to release their blackmail on that person.
It's
so I think
all
that it's
coming out.
A lot's going to come out. Yeah.
Yeah. All the blackmail is, hold on one second. I think all the blackmail's coming out because, like I was saying earlier, they all have these files, and it's not just the Epstein. It's the tip of the iceberg. It's everywhere. Crazy. Okay. Where can they sign up? My understanding is they can sign up for your website. It's a waiting, where they can get on a wait list to.
Yeah. So it's buildtheark.com. So ARK is an ARK, buildtheark.com. And that so right now, gosh, we're up to almost 10,000 people on the waiting list now.
Wow, good for you.
Because which is great. And so that's where you go, is put your name and your email in there, and that way we'll notify you as soon as it opens up. The other thing actually I forgot to mention is that as part of this kind of mission of just helping more people be prepared, I think that one of the biggest areas that makes people unprepared is actually not seeing the complete picture. Right? They might think, okay, I've got my water, I've got food, I've got everything, but maybe they're missing this one thing they hadn't even thought about. So another thing that I did is I created a free online quiz. So it's called ReadyScore. So if you go to readyscore.com, then there's two different quizzes, like a 1 minute, or it's like a 90-second quiz, and like a 10-minute quiz. They're both free, but it'll go through and it'll ask you like specific questions about where you live, like how much water you have, like what your skill set is, your spiritual kind of foundation, and how to handle this kind of difficulty. It goes through and asks you all these questions across, I think there's 9 different pillars that we've set up that represent like the different kind of pillars of being ready. And so you go through that quiz and you answer it. And once you finish at the end, it'll say, Oh, okay, Sarah, here's your ready score. You are a 65 out of 100. Here's where you're strong, and here's where you're weak, and here's your biggest weakness. It's actually that you don't have any way of purifying water, but you can buy a life straw for $10 on Amazon if you want to, that will then give you water purification. So basically, the idea with it is that it just helps people to give them an assessment of how prepared they are. So that's also something that's just readyscore.com. And again, it's free. It just is a service to people, but they can go in there and it'll help them understand exactly where they're at and hopefully remove some of the confusion and overwhelm that comes with that. So websites are readyscore.com, buildtheark.com for the community, preplikenoah.com for to get on the email list when the book is really coming out. And then my main podcast is just maninamerica.com. And that's the main place they can go get my links and, contact me and all that kind of stuff. So I've got lots of different websites.
You do. You got a lot going on. That's so great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you for being strong and doing what you're doing and being one of the adults in the room to do what's necessary. I really appreciate it. I think the world appreciates it. And thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for doing as well. I remember actually, funny enough, before I even started Man in America, I noticed actually maybe it was like within that short time, we were thinking, gosh, Sarah Westall, she's got a great podcast. So you're one of these examples I had early on of, what a great podcast looks like. So thank you for doing what you're doing because, you've impacted a lot of people with what you've done.